Assalamu alaikum, Ayesha. Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. So, our topic today will be on social footprints. Social footprints are vital for futuristic society, especially after this COVID situation that we are in now. It will be vital for flourishing the communities for future and preparing them for the better world and sustainability. So the whole of the world is going through COVID-19 situation that has brought in lessons and learning of how vulnerable we are as human. Um, no matter how resilient our plans are, we still will be having some gaps somewhere. So it's giving us a way to reflect and think that what will be the way forward. Strong economies like UK as well is predicted to be shrinking by 20%, with thousands of people losing their jobs and business closures. The social impact of COVID is huge. It's larger than we thought because it has hit home. It has left many without any jobs, and it has left many without any bread earners who have been lost to COVID-19. This is a very uncertain time for communities and for the businesses as well. There is a very big need to have a clear roadmap of how the communities can develop and what can we do to have flourishing economies and sustainability in Pakistan. So foundations, as we all know, has always played a role of a backbone for any society. And it has played a big role for developing the communities as well. They are present at the grassroots level, they are there to outreach. So obviously their role is vital and work as a bridge between the people and the economies. So today I have Ayesha with us, and she is known and recognized for a lot of work in socio-economic sector. She has done active interventions. She has been involved through lots and lots of projects where she has delivered on sustainability agendas. At the moment, she's working as a vice president for Hashwani Group for CSR activities, and she leads on the Hashwani's foundations. Now, she have 2 decades of experience and very well versed with sustainability challenges, but she's also aware with her wisdom and her experience that what can be the innovative models that we can adapt to bring a change at policy level, community level, and overall business sector level. So she is a World Bank certified trainer as well, and publisher and author for a lot of work that she has done. She is also a researcher, and she have done many development projects. She has worked with national and international organizations and bilateral organizations as well. Some of the names are UNDP, Asian Development Bank, UK Aid, and many other. She's also holding an honorary position for SAIVEC, CANSA, and SAC. So here we are with Ayesha. Welcome to our session, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you for giving me this time.
So Ayesha, my first question will be, tell us briefly a little bit about your journey and what you have learned all through these years of beautiful experience and work you were doing.
So my personal and professional journey has been in the development sector, as it is known now. I've been a social activist. So I've worked for child rights and women's rights. And actually it was a coincidence. My joining the development sector formally was when I just was sharing my thoughts with my teacher, and she said, you know, these ideas that you have, this is what people in the development sector do. So actually my first job was with the multi-donor support unit of the World Bank as a researcher and enumerator. And then of course I worked with the Swiss government and with the UN and World Bank on programs. So I've mostly, as compared to my current position as country director of Hashoo Foundation, I've worked on the donor side. I've worked with international agencies. So that has given me a certain insight and understanding. And then my first formal job was as rural economist on a Swiss project. So I've worked at the field level. I've been to the communities, and it's been a wonderful journey. And I've been very lucky to have worked with seniors, and my bosses were, extremely capable, competent people, colleagues at the time in the development sector, people like Simi Kamal and others, highly professional and very inspiring people. I've been part of the Women's Action Forum. So I think it's having the passion to serve others,
Yeah.
and the commitment to persevere. And this is something when I met Mr. Sadruddin Hashwani Saab, I never thought that I would join an NGO or head in a not-for-profit organization. And this kind of passion and space that he gave me to bring the learning and bring my experiences in order to serve people. So that is often people ask me, why from international to national? And I said, when you're working with, as a Pakistani, when you're working with international organizations, you have to follow, the international agendas. They have their priorities, as development aid is. And here, this is also, the foundation is not a typical NGO, it's straddling, it's the implementing agency for the corporate social responsibility of Hashoo Group. So Hashoo Group, as you know, is a conglomerate. So it's better known for the hotels, which of course are very, very challenged now, but oil and gas and other verticals that were established by Sadruddin Hashwani Saab, and now the deputy chairman, Mr. Murtaza Hashwani, is leading those. So this is what I enjoy about that. It's a Pakistani owned and Pakistani led organization, Hashoo Foundation. People often, it's not, they confuse this. They say, oh, is it working in a particular geographic region? And I say, no, it works across Pakistan. We've not been very good at promoting ourselves or projecting ourselves. That not actually, the family isn't into that. How people, they do very little and then they talk a lot. So what I found, one of our reasons for sharing or having more visibility or communicating our projects would be really to share the experiences that others can then replicate in different regions. And this is what we did when I joined the foundation about 3 or 4 years ago, and under Murtaza Hashwani, who's now the chairman of the foundation, is we repositioned it as a learning organization. So this, of course, the foundation is a reflection of 7 generations of the family's philanthropy, as well as corporate philanthropy. Now, as per the need of times and the fact that Pakistan and all of us are part of the global community. So we repositioned ourselves as an apex body, as a learning organization, focusing more on action research and policy advocacy. So we were established as a trust in 1988. We are more than 30 years old. And the experiences that we undertook, that we have across the socio-economic spectrum. So, the foundation has worked along and continues on 3 themes. Within the social development sector, it's health and nutrition, it's education, it's social protection, water and sanitation. And within the economic empowerment theme, we're working on entrepreneurship development, on skills development. So, really, youth is a primary area of development. It's a government priority as well as for us as well. So for youth development and training them in employable skills, that is something that was the past commitment. And what we've done is established a specialized institution by the name of Hashoo Honor. So we're continuing that with greater outreach. And more. In terms of inclusive development, we have a school by the name of UNIDO. It's a school for children with disabilities. Again, this was established by Madam Nouri, Mrs. Hashwani. So these tremendous platforms, I saw them with my experience as a development practitioner, I saw them as an opportunity to really, reach out to people and bring about the kind of social, the change that we want to do, we want to see as Pakistanis.
Yes.
So this is where we're at. This is where the organization is at. We're present across the country from Gilgit to Gwadar. We actually have offices in each of the areas. And I think I'm going to pause here and let you ask more questions. Otherwise, I will go.
Very, very interesting. Very interesting, because it's the first time I'm hearing someone with such a passion, and I feel like I'm hearing myself, because I myself, that I'm very much passionate about CSR, involving public and private partnership, and looking at how we can develop into a holistic societies when it comes to sustainability. And I would like to give you a very short, brief story. So what we did is that we have recently done a project, and that was based on Sialkot surgical industry. And it's in context with the youth development, skill development that you were talking about. So what happened is, the youth over there, they are no more interested to make surgical instruments. And the reason is that their ancestors, all through their journey of doing this very high skill craftsmanship, they never felt evenly rewarded for what they do. Okay, although they make one of the best instruments in the world. It's all over the world. Sialkot is known as the mecca for surgical instrument. Now the problem that we are looking at the moment is that very much likely that if we don't have any more makers, the whole of that industry will vanish. The whole of the skill set will be gone, because there was nothing in there to flourish that skill set. Similarly, when we did a research project with cotton communities in Pakistan, that was another very eye-opening experience. Similar problems there. The only thing people know is how to grow cotton. They don't know what else they can do. There is no entrepreneurship. There is no skill development. So as you rightly said, this is going to be one of the key elements towards establishing a roadmap of sustainability in Pakistan. So my first question to you is, Ayesha, how CSR can contribute to the sustainable development of Pakistan?
Well, CSR has been contributing, and it will continue, although it's going to be very challenging in this particular COVID and post-COVID scenario, because many of the major industries such as hospitality, tourism, aviation, they've been directly impacted by it. So corporate social responsibility, as you know, was part of corporate citizenship, of the large multinationals or large corporations. Mm-hmm. It has gradually evolved into, there's been a paradigm shift towards creating shared value, CSV, that we see Nestle and some other companies practicing.
Yeah.
That, simply means because corporate CSR was led by corporate leaders or individual philanthropists, such as we mentioned, Hashwani Saab. It is often seen as creating goodwill or more for gain or image. I don't think that it's as simplistic as that. There are people who are committed to developing communities where they work, and actually beyond the area of work, because as I remember reading a PricewaterhouseCoopers report of 2015. Many corporations across the world have aligned themselves with sustainable development goals because they've realized that it is good business. It's not just charity or philanthropy or giving. In Pakistan, the role has been discussed by the Philanthropy Center of Pakistan and by others. Corporations, including Hashoo Group, has contributed a tremendous amount. For example, Hashoo Group annual allocation to CSR was 800 million rupees. So this is this is something that is in reports, you know, the PSL or whatever. I'm not talking about now, I'm talking about the previous amount. And then out of this, you know, we had a large percentage going to scholarships at the university level. So education sector is one area where, as we see, you know, many corporates, they contribute to the education sector, to social welfare, to health, you know, setting up hospitals. I think even Shaukat Khanum Hospital, there were large donations from CSR. So historically, there has been an active role, and in the recent past, and even now, I believe, if I remember correctly, Dr. Sanya Nishtar has been, you know, speaking to motivating the corporate sector to invest directly in the ESAS program in terms of outreach and all. So that role of monetary, you know, financial investment, social towards social agendas is very much a CSR role. As the CSR paradigm has shifted, as I said, from CSR to CSV to social engineering, and another term you may have heard of is called impact investing. So this is where we have experimented. That is part of patient capital or angel funds. So this is something we have done where you know, where we promote entrepreneurship and we encourage youth to you know, supporting startups. So the entire startup ecosystem. That is where CSR comes in, also in the shape of patient capital and investment in social enterprises. So, for example, there was a young woman 2 years ago who wanted to provide hostel services to young women from remote areas, you know, in the urban centers for their education and other support. And then, or I don't know if you've heard of a startup by the name of DevTalk. This was, you know, also supported by the National Incubation Center. But initially, no one was willing to invest in people who, in this youngster who was visually impaired, and his friends were also, they were hearing impaired. So, you know, persons with disabilities, and they had this idea of providing services, you know, to the large, about 9 million hearing impaired people in Pakistan. And he said he'd gone to Coca-Cola, Telenor, the typical corporates. No one was willing to invest. And Hashoo Foundation, we invested in them. It's not a large amount, but that, you know, a small amount, and we also gave them mentoring services. So this was CSR funds. Another area that CSR, we have, the foundation has invested and experimented with, which I feel that, you know, CSR corporates should look at more, is research. We, for example, Hashoo Group's CSR funds, we invested in action research. As I said, we have our learning. We have the learning of, you know, global repositories around the world with regard to climate change, agricultural issues. So we have one of our signature project is known as the Smart Village, which stands for Sustainable Methods and Resilient Technologies. This about 2 years ago, in a remote village in Gilgit-Baltistan, where no NGO, no government had, you know, had worked, and we designed a project where we saw very positive results, and we, in terms of social impact on the community, increase in the revenue at the household level, the access to education, early childhood development is one of our hallmark programs. So, you know, this is the kind of thing that activities that we have done. So to sum it up very quickly, there's the typical CSR investment of funds for scholarships, you know, for health and social welfare. But somewhere that we are pushing for is really R&D. As you know, Pakistan is
Yeah.
very weak in
Yeah.
this, and especially during COVID and post-COVID, this is the need of the times. And so,
Definitely.
so not pure research, but action research, applied
Yeah.
research. We work with academia, and that's where we, we look at
Yeah.
CSR for sustainable development goals. So all that I've mentioned, there is an alignment with the SDG priorities,
Sure.
and especially looking at Pakistan, looking at the national priorities and vulnerabilities. So, for example, Pakistan is now the fifth most vulnerable country
Yeah.
on the climate risk index that we
Yeah.
see. So that is an area that we have,
Great.
invested CSR funds in as well.
Sure. Thank you, Aisha. That's very comprehensive. Um, I also would like to have your insight into that how the communities together, so I'm talking about the business, government, all the stakeholders together, can create positive social prints, and what will be the role of active capacity building and what it will look like.
So I think this is working together is something that I feel over the last decade, government has realized, as well as the development sector. We have, in the last 4 years at least, the foundation has very actively engaged the private sector. The chambers, and also the Pakistan Business Council, on particular themes. So not just the social themes of health that I mentioned, but as I said, for on climate change,
Yeah.
sub-themes
Yeah.
such as water,
Yeah.
such as solid waste management,
Sure.
recycling of it,
Very important.
air pollution.
Yeah.
We have a unfortunately, our webinar was clashing with another webinar of
Yeah.
ours that we have technical teams the foundation has on climate change and education and
Yeah.
entrepreneurship. So um, yeah, so these are sorry, some of the areas that we're
Key
working
areas.
on. Concerted, you were talking about stakeholders working together. So we actively do that. There is no way that any single sector or stakeholder can achieve
Yeah.
sustainable results on their own. And this we have seen.
Yeah.
The government has also increasingly realized that, which is a good thing. Um, I mean, we have been working with local governments across Pakistan. We have been working with civil society networks, from HRDN, the Human Resource Development Network, to we have the Hashoo Foundation as Secretariat for the National Action Coordination Group, which is a chapter, a body of SAIVEC, which
Yeah.
is South Asia Initiative to Eliminate Violence Against Children.
Mm-hmm.
So we, for example, more recently, we partnered with the Million Smiles Foundation that is headed by Zishan Afzal. You may have heard his name. So he's part of the C100. He founded the C100 think tank. And so, with think tanks, with academia, with the government, with civil society networks,
Yeah.
we work in a very focused way, and we promote such collaboration. I
Yeah.
mean, we were speaking with an advisor, a development advisor in the EU, and he said, and everyone says we need to work in a concerted manner.
Definitely.
That is why the UN was established. But unfortunately, in today's world, we see it doesn't quite happen.
No.
So I think the way the foundation and all our team and professionals within the foundation, what we do is, okay, we can't change minds or influence at a global level, but whatever we can do at our individual level, at our community level, at our village level, we do. Everyone does that proactively.
Yeah.
Whether it's within a program or a project. And that is the only way really to bring about real
Yeah.
change,
Yeah.
is to work together and build on each other's strengths. So for example, the foundation strength would be, certain technical expertise like early childhood development.
Mm.
The government has infrastructure,
Yeah.
and other corporate entities have maybe they're keen on investing. So we would come together in that manner, or any UN agency or any other if they want to work. So it's extremely important for community development to work together.
Sure. So really, from your discussion today, if we are looking at an innovative model, I would envisage that it's going to be a model of partnership, absolute partnership. And there has to be portals where whatever work's being done is reported, because one of the key problem was that there was no reporting system for SDG. Therefore, Pakistan, when it comes to the SDG goals achievement, we don't have any reporting system. So that's another very crucial area, because we are working in our own silos. We are not putting it together in a comprehensive way. Also, the legislative framework on CSR is lacking in Pakistan. It's Saqib who's raising this issue. So we as Positive Impact, as you know, we have an office in Pakistan now. We have relevant stakeholders now. And I think it will be the crucial time that we float around a more comprehensive models, and we come up with innovation and social development through all the other initiatives you were talking about, like entrepreneurship, developing people, learning and development, skill development. So there's a whole lot of the work that needs to be done. So excellent insights. Thank you very much, Ayesha. I'm going to be opening a question answer session, so that if people want to, yeah.
Can I just two things? I
Yeah,
want to,
sure.
one, agree with you regarding reporting. That
Yeah.
is even the foundation's challenge. I mean, that is what I'm doing on an emergency. We've done so much. And in terms of publishing and sharing, there is not enough. In fact, I've asked a couple of organizations to help us with
Yeah.
that. With regard to CSR policy, I often hear people speak of legislation. Maybe I'm a bit of a cynic over there. For me, I don't think any more legislation is required.
No,
I
no.
think what is and I'll say just temporarily, what is required is for the government to follow through on the existing legislation.
Exactly.
For the government agencies that exist, there are CSR platforms, there are SDG platforms, we have the Planning Commission, and we have brilliant minds leading this. The issue is walking the talk. The issue is action. It's
Exactly.
implementation.
Implementation. Yeah.
And for that to materialize, there is, you see, I often say democracy, or which it's a two-way street. So yes, you need competent leadership, whatever, but what is also required is responsible citizenship. That
Sure.
is missing, I'm sorry to say. The
Sure.
responsible citizenship that reminds the government bodies and agencies, as a reminder, not an aggressive, हम लोग इस तरह करते या कुछ नहीं कहते और या does कर लेते हैं, like
Exactly.
we're so aggressive. Either we say nothing as citizens, or either we're
We go on the
vitriolic.
streets. Yes.
Yes, we go on these. So just giving feedback doesn't mean being negative or rude or discourteous. People don't know how to critique, how to, to
Positively
listen and
appraise.
to,
Positively appraise. Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. So it's only 5 minutes left, so I'm going to be unmuting so that if there are any questions. So any participant for any question, please, you can unmute and ask.
Either I'm very, very clear, or people
Saqib, do
are.
you have any question? Okay, so there is a question on the chat, and it is about how we can engage relevant stakeholders to develop a draft of an overall CSR policy.
Well, engagement of stakeholders is nowadays, especially, you'd have to, use an online platform. What is a good idea is really to prepare an idea or a concept, not very big, just a few lines, float that, circulate that, invite people to comment on it, and then go to the next step of, taking it to the policy level, to a larger level, till you get a document that you feel confident you can now submit to the policymakers. So, I mean, that is also, yeah.
Yeah,
So
okay.
that helps. Yeah.
So legislative framework is lacking in Pakistan. Do you agree with that? Well, you just said that the CSR legislative structure is there. It's just about the implementation, isn't it?
So with regard, there isn't, again, what do we mean by that? That's a very broad statement.
Yeah,
In the oil and gas industry, they are required by law to contribute 1% of their profits to CSR. Now, for example, in hospitality sector or many business people, they contribute, because this is again, as there was a study in, I think a global study or in Pakistan, that Pakistanis are amongst the most giving people in the world. And, as we see, people will give. But the moment you make it a law, I fear, this will
yeah,
stop.
obviously. I think the question was asked in the context of, as a result of COVID, lots of businesses have been closing down and they've been firing their employees. So I think the question that was asked in the context of the
Yeah.
safeguarding of those
So
vulnerable
I was,
groups.
yes. So that legislation, I'm working with, I have friends and colleagues to safeguard employees,
Yeah,
so they're not let go. Having said that, what the government needs to do actually is to have a more business friendly environment. If
sure.
there are more transparency, and for example, taxation laws or whatever, if those are better, then the government, the businesses will, or corporates will be able to afford to provide the kind of support to their employees as they were doing. Nobody wants to let go of talent that they have acquired over time. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of, some things I know from friends, and as I said, within the hospitality sector, these are very difficult decisions. And I think it's rather simplistic to, put things in black and white, or say this is XYZ responsibility, or the government's responsibility.
Everyone's.
Everything is so interconnected.
Yeah.
With regard to the legislative frame, very quickly, yes, it's required, but I feel the sector is not mature enough, and nor, unfortunately, our government, the way that they implement policies and laws,
Okay.
there's still that trust deficit that would
Yeah.
actually be detrimental
Yeah.
to whatever is,
Sure.
to the kind of contribution that is being given by the corporate sector right now.
Okay, now we have, this is the last, there are a few other questions that are coming through about the programs and what can be done. So because we have a very short time now, there are questions around climate change. There are questions around the most impactful way the businesses can invest into CSR. So I think you will agree, and as whatever you have suggested so far, it has to be a holistic approach when it comes to the CSR
Can
impactful
I
investment.
mention for CSR? I
Yeah.
think they should invest in the economic empowerment arena. in entrepreneurship and providing patient
Sure.
capital to startups. I think
Sure.
that's a very impactful area. The
Yeah.
other, I feel, is action research, applied
Sure.
research.
Yeah.
There's not enough
Yeah. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
academic institutions. I mean, that's what I feel.
Yeah.
That these are
Great.
areas.
Great. So, Ayesha, I'll be sharing the questions with you later through another email, and maybe we can respond to these people through text or whatever best ways possible. So,
Sure.
thank you very much for joining us